Hello guys, and welcome to a video which is, for me, a first of its kind. We're going through the changelog for the Epic Unity rework, or EUR version 2 for short. That has just been released. It's been released, I think, yesterday evening, and it's a very nice and comprehensive way to go over all the things that EUR will change with the next version. In case you don't know what EUR is a sub-mod for Third Age Total War Divide and Conquer, which basically puts the game on its head. It just changes a ton of things, and it will change a lot more in version 2, so I can highly recommend it already in version 1. If you want to check it out for yourself without having to download it, you can always watch my Dunland campaign, which plays with the EUR submod. But basically in version 2, they're going even more balls to the wall, and there's going to be so many interesting changes. I mean, I'm just looking at the table of contents here, and there's so many interesting things. But we're going to go through it one by one. I read through it really briefly just to know what's going on, but I think I haven't read anything in detail. So a lot of things are going to be new for me as well. So we're going to go through it together. I'll give you my thoughts, and then yeah, we'll see. And I'm very excited to play it once it releases. Alright, let's jump in, and immediately it's talking about EOP, which is the Engine Overhaul project. You remember probably back in the day in Medieval 2 modding, an excuse that was often used by modders, well, I use the word excuse, but it was a valid reason that certain things could not be changed because of engine limitations. Now, the Engine Overhaul project, as the name infers, basically removes that reason and makes it possible to change pretty much anything within the game. So let's see what they do with it in EUR. So, new options menu. Upon starting a new campaign, the menu will appear, enabling the player to make changes to our new EOP mechanics and scripts, including disabling or enabling them. Upon closing the window, it will then prompt the player to accept and start the campaign with those settings. The menu can also be accessed again through the faction summary scroll. So, based on what I'm seeing in the screenshot, I see some UI options. There's some campaign miscellaneous stuff. You can like toggle hardcore mode on and off, post-battle loot, AI army merging. That's an interesting one. So that means the enemy AI is going to merge armies, which they currently, I don't think, ever do. Also the possibility to sort your army. There's an example here where it automatically puts units from the same category, like swordmen, spearmen, archers. Makes it nice and orderly. Also replenishment stuff. I think that's stuff that will come back later. But basically what I interpret this as is you're going to have a lot of freedom as a player to tailor-make your campaigns. Like, you can change pretty much everything, and not just at the start, but also on the fly. I'm not sure if everything will be able to be changed throughout the campaign, but I imagine a lot of things can be. So this is quite massive, and especially for me as someone that does YouTube campaigns, it opens up a lot of possibilities, I think, to make small changes and to really make a campaign unique, whether that's just personal preference stuff or stuff that fits more with the type of faction you're playing as. So interesting stuff. I'd like to know more what the exact options are that you'll be able to toggle between. I think some of the things will come back later, but just the fact that you can change all those things and you can really make it your own, you just personalize it pretty much in all the small details, just really interesting and really, really cool. And that's not just for EUR, I imagine. I imagine that will make it possible for any mod that uses EOP. So that's really cool. Faction events. Each culture and faction will have access to a small number of thematic events that they can call upon during the campaign. Okay, so I read that as, because right now there's already scripts in game, but you just need to meet criteria, you know, when X, then Y. But in this case, it seems you can choose when to activate those events. Some will be available at the start, with others unlocked depending on how the campaign is going and the choices of the player. The events come with a wide variety of effects for good or evil, and each culture has its own unique UI. On display are the faction events for Lorien. Okay, so that's the screenshot here. Mirror of Galadriel grants vision over the target faction's territory. Okay, kind of like a Palantir. Yavanna's Blessing gives bonuses to population and growth. Awakening of the Trees summon a powerful End General. Light of the Eldar buff to all characters. Thanks to EOP, we'll be bringing a number of new scripts and mechanics to the campaign, many of which can be optionally turned on, I'm assuming. Oh, tuned, sorry, I can't read. Or disabled depending on the player's preference. So it looks like a menu that you can open during the campaign. It's sort of similar to more modern Total War games where you have these options like in Warhammer. And then you can just choose, like Mirror of Galadriel, for example, now is locked. I imagine the player doesn't meet the criteria for it. Same with Awakening of the Trees. But once it's unlocked, So for example here, Our Lady's efforts are needed in defense of Lorien. Reclaim Amon Lang, so Dol Guldur to unlock. So once you take Dol Guldur, you unlock the Mirror of Galadriel, because Galadriel is no longer needed for the defense of Lorien. And then you can just activate it whenever you want. Okay, so you need to pay 2,000 gold. Duration is 5 turns. So that's 5 turns you have vision over everywhere, I assume. And a 30-turn cooldown. Oh no, wait, sorry, that's for Yavanna's Blessing, that's not for Middle of Gratia. So that's 5 turns of bonus population and growth with a cooldown of 30 seconds. Okay. Population replenishment, wounded garrison replenishment, that's an interesting one. Halt Elven Passing. So I assume there's a passive script going where elves are going west and probably reduce your population growth, and that halts it for 10 turns whilst also improving your own growth. So I think for the Elven faction, especially when you want to upgrade your settlements, it's going to be quite a big one. But of course, this is just the Elves. I mean, Mordor is going to have some very interesting scripts, I assume. Same with Gondor. I mean, for every faction, you can come up with a lot of fun events that you can tune and use how you want, because you can just disable it if you want that, if you don't want to play with it. But you can also tune them, so you can probably be like, oh, I want to have growth at 1% instead of 0.5%. So really interesting, and again, especially for me as a YouTuber, a way to customize the campaign. These are things that I used to use as house rules, where I had to use like console commands to kind of brute force it. This is a much more elegant solution, and it just looks great with the UI overlook as well. So that's really, really cool. I'm very interested to see what they've come up with for their other factions as well. But the ones that are here right now already give us a good idea. Like granting vision over the target faction territory. I assume most factions that have a Palantir will also have such an option. Summon a powerful end general. I assume other factions will also have, summon X or Y. Like Moria could have, like, summon the Balrog for X amount of turns, or summon a Nazgul, maybe even a Fell Beast, who knows. So really interesting, very interesting. Bonus population and growth, I assume, we'll also see for other factions. Buff to all characters. I'm not sure what that exactly entails. I assume it's limited to generals. Maybe agents as well. But yeah, we'll have to see what that entails exactly. Unit upgrades. Unit upgrades enable the player to promote a unit to the next level if they meet the minimum experience requirement. Many, but not all units will have upgrade paths available to keep things sensible and low friendly. Upgrade paths to the next logical tier for the unit type, for example, Tier 1 Spearmen to Tier 2 to Tier 3. Half-cost side upgrades are available for lower tier units, for example T1 Archers to T1 Spearmen. All units have a chance to upgrade to the next tier if the requirements are met. As with many of our new EOP mechanics, player has the option to disable or tweak things through in the menu. Okay, so for me this very much reminds me of the way it's done in Mount and Blade. So you start off with a shitty farmer unit, but if you use it a lot and it gains a lot of experience and it doesn't die, importantly enough, you can upgrade it to a soldier, to a knight, etc, etc. So I'm not sure if that will completely replace just being able to straight up immediately recruit a Tier 2 Spearman or a Tier 3 Spearman, but it does give you the option. I assume it's cheaper to upgrade units that you already have. And I think that's really interesting, because it happens quite a lot in campaigns where you're playing as Gondor, for example, and in the early game you rely a lot on your Gondor militia, which is a good unit for the early game, but in the late game they're completely useless. So the units you train in the beginning and you kind of still have laying around, you just put them in like settlements and never really think about them ever again. But in this scenario, you're kind of rewarded for still using them, bringing them around on the battlefield, getting them some combat experience, and then being able to upgrade them to the next path. Makes a lot of sense lore-wise as well, they get fighting experience, and then you pay the money, not to train them, because they're already trained from fighting, but to train them to get the upgraded armor and weaponry, to bring them to a Tier 2 unit. So that's really interesting. I'd like to know more how that exactly works. I'm also quite curious to see how that would work for the AI, if they also use the same system. Because right now, AI spam can be quite annoying. For example, Mordor, they just like pump out Tier 2 Black Uruk units constantly. But if you force them to use kind of lower tier units in order to get those higher tier units, kind of will make the AI think a bit more about just, spamming out Tier 2 or Tier 3 units, especially if that becomes more expensive for them. But we'll have to see how it works. I mean, did they say you can tune it as you want? So I assume the cost will as well be able to be changed as you wish. But just being able to have that option, yeah, seems interesting. Immediately I think of Mount and Blade, and I really like that system in Mount and Blade, so that's going to be something to look forward to. Dynamic loot. In Divide and Conquer, there was a chance for players to loot enemy baggage trains after winning a field battle, with chances varying based on victory type and if the player was the attacker or defender. I did not know that. I thought you always got that loot, which I think is 300 gold coins flat. The player would be awarded a fixed amount regardless of army size or composition. I think it's 300 gold. With the new system, the chance to loot remains the same. However, the looted amount is dynamically calculated based on variables such as player and AI army sizes, unit composition, and victory type, with heroic victories, shown in the picture, giving the highest amount. The loot amount also scales as the game progresses and the AI fields higher quality armies. So there's an example here. So we have Denethor with just under 1,000 soldiers fighting against about 1.5k Mordor troops. And they get 2,253 gold coins. So that's a lot of money. So as I said, I think right now, yeah, it's a fixed amount, so it's 300 gold coins, and it doesn't matter. You can beat up like one Orc Band unit, which is like one of the worst units in the game, with a full army of Noldor elves, or you can beat up a full stack of Noldor elves with an army of your own, and you'll always get the same amount, which is a bit silly. And in a way, I think this rewards a more proactive playstyle, because right now in Medieval 2, not just DAG, but in every game and every mod for it, you're kind of disincentivized to go after big field armies. You got a big army and there's an enemy big army, you're kind of just gonna like skirt them, try to avoid them, because it's not really worth throwing away your units in just a one-on-one field battle. Either you can try to lure them in a position that's more beneficial to you, like a bridge battle or a defensive siege battle, or you're just gonna try to kite them as much as you can and just kind of ignore them, wait for them maybe to attack one of your settlements and then, you know, turn it around on them. But in this scenario, especially if you're a faction that's kind of money hungry, there's a real incentive for you to go out and take those big battles. It's going to cost you in troops, but if I just look at the reward here, I mean, this is for heroic victory, of course, so we don't have that many casualties on our side. But 2,000 coins, that buys you a lot of troops, so that replenishes you a lot of troops. So you kind of make your money back and then some. Especially if you get those good victories, which also, you know, further promotes you trying to get those good victories, those heroic wins, those decisive wins, instead of those Pyrrhic victories. So I really like this system. I assume, again, it doesn't mention it, but I assume you can also tune it how much you want, so you can make it an absurd amount. I'm not sure if that is also, I didn't read that, if it depends on which faction you're playing as. I imagine looting an elven army that you've beaten will bring up more money, also because they're smaller, but you know, there's higher quality loot to be gained than a poor goblin stack that doesn't really have anything. So I'm not sure if that's the case, if that's also an option to change. That would be, I think, nice, beating up dwarves just to loot them, stuff like that. But yeah, interesting system. Not something I've personally would have thought of. It's something I really don't think about that often, that 300 gold coins you currently get. It's a nice little extra sometimes, but especially in the late game it doesn't matter at all anymore. In the early game it can be a valid moneymaker, but in this situation I think it's going to be relevant throughout the entire game. So that's something I've noticed throughout all these changelogs. It's stuff that makes things that are currently only relevant in like the early game or only relevant in the late game relevant throughout the entire game, like your tier 1 units you can upgrade, your loot system. So that's really nice. That keeps the game interesting for a longer time. It's no secret that I really like the early game and I less like the late game of any campaign, but this might spice it up enough for me to like both early and late game. Replenishment. Similar to newer Total War games, a replenishment system has been added for damaged units. Unlike the newer games, replenishment is enabled in settlements and forts by default for both the player and AI, and units will typically take several turns to replenish to full size depending on the damage. Replenishment is calculated semi-randomly based on the unit size. For example, a unit with 127 men would replenish between 3 to 5 entities per turn. That's really not that many. Low entity beast units such as trolls and ents do not replenish by default. Okay, that's good. From playtesting, replenishment makes it viable to use the whole faction roster and moves away from the need to use generals to soak up damage. Taking too much damage is still punished and units won't replenish instantly. As with most of our EOP scripts, these mechanics can be optionally disabled and tweaked through the UI. Sorry, I can't read. Okay, I that's interesting. First and foremost, I really like that low entity beast units such as trolls, ents, I assume great beasts, etc., Mumakil, do not replenish by default. That's good. From a balancing perspective, I think that's very much necessary. And it is indeed true, something they managed, something that is quite common, especially also again in early game, the need to use generals to soak up damage, because your generals are the only unit that replenishes. So it is a valid strategy to only use your generals and save your units that don't automatically replenish at the moment for when you really need them. So there's many battles where you're just kind of only using your general, making sure they take the casualties, and as long as the general himself, that entity, survives, he's going to get his full unit back, and depending on recovery rates, it's going to be like super fast. So kind of a broken system. Now, I'm not sure if the solution is to make that broken system apply to all units. I think that's something I kind of have to test out for myself. I do like the system in newer Total War games. It's definitely more player-friendly, makes it less obnoxious to have like your units at the front line, bring them all the way back to replenish them, etc. It's kind of a nuisance sometimes, so I do like that. We'll have to see how balanced it is, because I can imagine it can be exploited rather easily as well. I'm also curious to see how it will affect replenishment after the battles. There's always like that flat rate of you, or depending on your healing recovery stat, where an army gets back casualties during a battle, after the battle, just like a flat amount they get back. I'm not sure if this will replace that, or if both things exist at the same time. But it does seem interesting, and again, like, there's so many factions that have units that are really hard to get. They're very slow to train. They have a high cooldown, so you really don't have that many of them lying about. And then you're so scared of using that unit because it's a pain to replenish them. And that's kind of a shame, right? You build up your campaign, you save your money, you complete your scripts, you build up as much as you have to, and then you get these epic cool units, and you're kind of too scared to use them. So in a way, this system should go against that, right? Because you can use them, they will replenish. You don't have to go through, you can only retrain this unit in Minas Tirith and they're currently located in Moria, and you have to walk all the way back. You're barely gonna use them. I do like that. So it's something I'll have to play around with. And again, I do like being able to change things for yourself. We'll have to see just how much in detail you can fine-tune those mechanics. But based on the fact that it doesn't apply to beast units such as trolls and ents, I think in theory you should be able to tune it on a unit basis. Like, you can do it per individual type of soldier, that you can make it they replenish this much or that much, or they don't replenish at all. So again, that's really interesting. Something that scares me a little bit is, of course, that the AI will use it as well, but in a way that does promote aggression. If you've won a battle or you've lost a battle, but you've done a lot of damage to an enemy army and they got a battered army out there, it's really in your best interest not to let them go home to some settlement or some fort to replenish, but to chase after them and kill them off whilst they're still weak, not allowing them to replenish. Now, something that I would also like, I'm not sure if that's possible, is to kind of base the replenishment rate based on how far away you are from your homeland. If you have an army that's really on the front line, I would imagine, lore-wise, they would replenish slower than one that's really close to your heartlands. So maybe they can be like scaled based on the distance to your capital. I'm not sure if that's something that can work. Then again, you can change your capital all the time, so it's easily avoided as well. But that could be a cool feature. New AA, so Ar-Adonheim, start locations. On observation of our community, we have noticed there's a very common trend of Ar-Adonheim players choosing to start out on locations other than Umbar. Yes, very fun for YouTube as well. Hence, we have made a script to help skip the tedious task of moving to said locations or having to resort to cheats to move there. I like that. In view is the faction start for the Ar-Adonheim, which includes a feature that allows the player to select one of the 4 most popular starting locations. So Umbar, which is the default one, Londair, which is at Enedwaith, they show it right here, Forodwaith, which is all the way in the north, with Angmar, or the Sea of Rune. Sea of Rune, I know a lot of people do that as a starting location, but it makes no sense to me, because all these other locations, yeah, the Ar-Adonheim, they arrive by boat at Umbar, so they could also sail further north or sail towards Forodwaith. How could they sail all the way to Rune? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. Right, so Return of the Ar-Adonheim, alternate start. So in this screenshot here, they've picked Londyre, ancient Numenorean port. Yeah. So Argimilka. Oh, so you have the 3 armies, right? And it seems that if you pick Londyre, you lose a couple units. Gimel Chad loses his footmen, his pikemen, and his archers. Some of our men may be lost undertaking this journey. So I assume if you go even further north to Forodwaith, you'd have even less units. Interesting, interesting. Would be nice to have even more options, in a way. But I like this. This is good. Takes away some of the tediousness, like they say, or the cheating. But yeah, it would be cool to also have this option for other factions. I'm thinking, for example, Khand. If you have an option to go Horde mode, that you could just start off, for example, in the Sea of Rune and just go ham there. Then again, you're already kind of close there. But yeah, interesting. Very interesting. And I think, once again, a reminder that I have to do another Aradanheim campaign, especially with this, this menu. New faction info menu. With EOP, we'll now be implementing a new way to view the faction info as well as the scripts in detail in a proper and orderly fashion. Oh yeah, so that is not when you start a campaign, but during the campaign, where you can just kind of go over the current scripts and just information. So you got your about, you got your settings, you got your credits that you can, I think, access throughout the campaign, which is really nice. EUR version 1 already had that option. You had to press like the mission menu, and then you had to toggle through it, so it was kind of weird, not very, you know, comfortable, but this makes it easier, it makes it nicer. I'm not a big fan of the way the UI looks. I hope they kind of change that a little bit, but that's just personal stuff, so, you know, don't take too much, don't pay too much attention to that. Final version 2 symbols and campaign menu. I think most of these are already used at the moment. Oh no, wait, I'm talking out of my ass. Because in my Dunland campaign, I think I'm running a slightly newer version of EOR, which already has the new symbols and new options. So that's why I already know these. But yeah, they are new. The observant among you will also notice a name that is not familiar, which is Blue Crag. That is a new faction that will be added in version 2 of EOR, but we'll get to that, I think, later. Yeah, I like all of these. Just going through them. The Dorwinian one is a bit too busy for me, but that's just personal preference. Dunland looks sick. Enedwaith, I love the fish. I mean, it's just crazy. Gondor. I also like that Moria, Gundabad, and Mordor. They've always looked very similar, but now they're much more distinct. Especially Moria and Mordor used to look pretty much the same. But yeah, this is really nice with the peaks of the Misty Mountains. Gundabad being a lot more visibly able to interchange those. Eregion as well being added as a faction. Oh, nice, and got Imladris. Imladris will be weird to not have them blue, but I trust that is very much necessary. I assume to also make the distinction with Arnor. Is Arnor in here, actually? I see the Northern Dunedain, but I'm not seeing Arnor or the Reunited Kingdom. That might just be me. And this is, I guess, the starting menu. So we got the Blue Crag over here, but we'll get to them. We'll get to them. Okay. Brand new symbols. Ah, there we go. Made by Quintus. Some of them are just refurbished DAC symbols. Brand new main menu selection screen. Yeah, that's this one here. Thanks to CU for allowing me to make this amazing map of Middle-earth in 4K. Hey, there we go. Player will be able to choose his starting faction on a large scale and detailed Middle-earth map. On the right side, we will see highly detailed zoom in on the starting area. Oh, like this. That's really nice. Final placement of the factions will be changed to fit better. Yeah, I really like that. It gives a much nicer overview. And maybe there is still room to add another Rovanian-based faction. We'll see. But yeah, that's really nice. There's also... I guess this is supposed to be Khazad-dûm, right? Yeah. Also, are we not missing Erebor? Oh no, this is Erebor right here. Never mind. Okay. So this is... that's Gondor, that's Arnor, and that's the Reunited Kingdom. Okay, I like that. Right. Blue Crags, Dohans. With version 2, we'll be introducing a brand new evil faction to spice up the Western Front, the Blue Crags. So they're over here. I like it, in a way, for making the Ered Luin and Imladris campaigns... Oh no, wait, sorry, I'm actually talking crap. Linden is a separate faction. So Imladris, the Grey Havens, Imladris Rivendell and the Grey Havens are now two separate factions once again. Alright, there used to be one faction, now the two factions again. Okay, so that even more makes it clear why they added the blue Crag. Because if you're playing as Linden, you'd have no trouble, unless Ered Luin goes evil, but that's quite later on in the campaign. So you'd have a very, very boring early game, because there's no one to fight. You're not going to fight Bree, who they still need to add. You're not going to fight the Dunedain. You could fight Enedwythe, but that's going to take you a while to get there. So your first 50 turns, you're just fighting rebels. So I think that's probably the reason why they added the blue Crag. And also, if you want to play good Ered Luin, good Ered Luin was the most boring campaign you could have done. You'd fight Angmar, and that was pretty much it. And even that, before you reach Angmar, is just a bunch of rebel fighting. So evil Ered Luin was always the way to go, right? It's the only fun way to play the campaign. But now with the blue Crag faction, that opens up an interesting front and another enemy as well. I feel like most factions need at least 2 enemies to be interesting at any given point. So let's take a look. Represents a cunning and ruthless tribe of goblins known for their brutal armor-piercing units. Okay, so as you're playing as Linden and the dwarfs, that's going to be quite tough. Raw survivalist tactics. Starting as a goblin factions, they hold ambitions beyond typical tribal warfare, looking to dominate through sheer force and terror. So I read this armor-piercing units and scaring enemy units. With the mid-game potential for transformation, the Blue Crags have a unique choice to transform their faction into the Dorans. Okay, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but so be it. The Dorans, a corrupted clan of dwarves in Lord of the Rings Online, were once part of the Longbeards but fell into darkness, aligning with evil powers like Skorgrim Doorhand and the Witch King of Angmar. Depending on the player's choice during the campaign, the player can revive Skorgrim Doorhand, okay, and subjugate the Blue Crags to transform into Doorhands, blending their elite forces with the goblins roster for a potent yet uneasy alliance. So dwarves and goblins, pretty much. Interesting. Very interesting. Does that replace evil Ered Luin? I'm not sure. Blue Crag Goblins, early game units with mass armor piercing capabilities but lacking in armor, with elite Blue Crag Orcs late game. Okay. Doran, so those are the dwarves I assume, mid-tier and elite dwarves, yeah, boasting high armor piercing attacks, specializing in unique and diverse siege equipment, capable of outperforming other dwarven factions in raw power and artillery. So that to me really reads a lot like evil Ered Luin. Sharing the Grimborn, sharing a common goal, they will no longer be available for Ered Luin, there we go, and will instead aid the Blue Crags and join the roster upon the destruction of their mortal enemy. So they kind of picked away a bit at evil Ered Luin, which I don't mind. Well, interesting to see how it plays out. In line with the Lord of the Rings Online lore, the Dorans will have the potential to form an alliance with Angmar, further expanding their strategic options and unit diversity. That's going to make the campaigns of the Northern Dunedain, especially the Northern Dunedain, I think, and Bree a lot more difficult, I think. Which is nice. I think it's very much needed. I think Northern Dunedain really want that hard of a faction. Bree, I can't really say. I don't have too much experience with them. They don't seem like a hard faction, especially if Ered Luin stays good. That's kind of the problem when you're playing as Bree and Northern Dunedain. Your entire experience depends on a coin toss. Because if the AI is playing Ered Luin, it's pretty much just a 50-50 whether they go good or evil. And if they go good, your campaign is a lot easier than if they go evil. So I'm not sure if it replaces evil Ered Luin. For me, it can, very much. So Ered Luin is just always good. But you always have the Doran or the Blue Crag to worry about. And then it changes it. It's no longer a coin toss. You always have to take care of them. So, Dwarf Subjugation Mechanic. By controlling key dwarven settlements, players can recruit AOR, so that's Area of Recruitment, dwarven units exclusive to the Dorans. So if you take Moria, you can get a unique Moria unit. If you take Thorin's Halls, you get a unique unit there. If you go all the way to Erebor, somehow, you're probably going to get a unique unit there as well. You can only train their Area of Recruitment. Adding variety and depth to the faction's military options. And look at this bad boy. Special script. Fulfilling certain conditions after capturing Buzra Doom. Buzra Doom is over here. So if you capture that, you unlock a script to recruit a new Balrog to the ranks, providing a powerful late game advantage. I assume the script will work similar to the one they showed with Lorien for the Ent General. Look at him. He looks sick. He's got like 2 maces. So he's quite different from the Balrog of Moria, but still similar enough that you can immediately tell that's a Balrog. And you can tell there's a size comparison. There's a troll right here, there's a goblin right here. That thing is massive. I think that's one of the largest models I've seen in game. Like, that's crazy. Okay, starting location. We've made some adjustments to the campaign map so that it's more playable with all the changes we are doing to factions, as well as bringing in a whole new power of evil in the region. We used 2 settlements that are present in Lord of the Rings Online, but we changed their location so that they actually make sense in how the campaign plays out. So less Lore friendly, more gameplay friendly. Okay. Added 2 new Elven City ruins from the old times that will be controlled by blue crags or rebels. There will be an option to rebuild them, so if you reconquer them as elves, I assume, or as dwarves, you can rebuild them. Also added an impassable river in between Forlands and a new town so that interaction at first turns won't be possible. Okay, so that's these settlements here, Rathterijk and Amonluine. And Hardin Eir. I'm probably pronouncing it completely wrong. Yeah, makes sense, right? And again, you probably remember from old modding of 3rd Age that there was a faction, or sorry, a settlement limit. They couldn't add any more settlements. With EOP, they can add as many settlements as they want. So, yeah, that's great. And makes sense, of course, that the Blue Crag, of course, needs some playing field as well. The CAS models. 7 rings gave to the dwarves. Yeah, that's just low stuff. So these are the models for the Blue Crag unit. So this is the first tier, and you can definitely tell that armor piercing based on the clubs they're using. This tier continues the lack of regard for missile, gets into melee quickly with his armor piercing two-handers, messes up elves and humans alike. Okay, we got a javelin unit as well, which is also armor piercing, I assume. And a slinger unit, which is probably also armor piercing. Okay, I like that. So this is with armor upgrades. Yes, I love that. I am a big fan, and it's one of the things I love most about Medieval 2, is that you can visually tell when a unit has armor upgrades. It doesn't have to be much, like these guys, they just added the officer crest or whatever, but it looks cool. I like it. Okay. So that applies to all of them, right? So the javelins, the melee unit, and the slingers. Blue Crag smithing is rudimentary, they rely on leather, ropes, and bones primarily. Yes, more bones, I like that. Stables, we get, these aren't wargs, right? These are wolves. Yes, wolf packs will help keep enemy archers moving or decimate them outright. Requires mountains or forest regions. Okay, so that's your tier 1 cavalry. So that's your tier 1 roster as a whole. Okay, I like that. Tier 2, unupgraded, a two-hander unit, which is shown over here. Spear and shield, axe and shield, armor piercing, a slinger. So you get a tier 2 slinger, I like that. And a mounted melee warg rider. The warg looks massive compared to these goblins. And that's with upgrades. Yeah, they look really nice actually. That's a really cool look. Like the crown of bones. We got some nasty looking wolves, not wargs, but wolves, which is part of the tier 3. And then we go all the way to the tier 4 for the Blue Crag Berserkers. I like that a lot. Found only in the west. This AOR group of orcs, so no goblins but orcs, will be the hammer of the goblin hordes. First unit is a berserker type. Small unit size, strong in melee, sporting armor-piercing weapons. Oh, and that's the 3 upgrade levels, so that's without armor, that's tier 1 armor, tier 2 armor. Okay, like that. Blue Crag javelins, same deal here. There's not that many like tier 3 javelin units in the game. Most javelin units are like tier 1, maybe tier 2, so that's going to be interesting to see how they perform. Armor-piercing javelins with good range. I like that. Most javelins have really poor range. Okay. Mace and shield, which I assume is also armor-piercing. Again, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Yeah, armor-piercing, well-armored. Very nice. And then we got these guys, the Wolverines of the Blue Crag. The Warg Skin Ravagers. A brutal goblin warband from the Blue Crags with the only strong survivor rite of passage that demands they slay a warg and wear its pelt as a symbol. That's pretty heavy metal. Armed with clawed weapons made from scrap metal and bone, they fight like the beasts they hunt, tearing through enemies in frenzied attacks, serving as shock troops. The Ravager's wild howls and relentless advance scatter foes and even intimidate fellow goblins. Intimidate? So I assume they boost your own fighting morale. I don't think they're going to lower your own morale. Probably lower enemy morale, and I assume they're also very, very good at hiding. So if you're fighting in the woods, you can hide them in a stack of trees, wait for the enemy to engage your front line, and then move in from the rear and just absolutely obliterate them. Gonna be interesting to see their stats, but yeah, they look cool. I assume they're also gonna be quite a fast unit as well. So very, very interesting. Blue Crag Trolls, oh, they look sick. Are they using other rock hurlers? Okay, so they can actually throw rocks. So I assume they work as an artillery unit, kind of to replace a catapult. They look sick with the armor as well. The variant will be throwing 2-meter rocks up to 200 meters. 2-meter rocks, Jesus! To smash into their foes. Armor piercing, body piercing, area of attack, devastating. Okay. That armor level will be low and they won't be as good at melee as their melee counterparts. Okay. But for that we have the melee boys, the Blue Crag Mountain Trolls, which can be fully upgraded. Blue Crag starting regions, some Blue Mountains will have neutral regions from which will pour the Blue Crag Mountain Trolls. The final upgrade requires blue crags to accept the Doran path, so we need dwarves to kit them out like this. Okay, makes sense. That wasn't siege, this is siege. Holy cow, they strapped a catapult to a troll. Okay, that is sick. The troll catapult. So yeah, we used to have the troll catapult with Mordor and Moria, which was just a catapult being used by trolls. Now they've just glued a catapult to the back of a troll. So that is actually really interesting, because that makes it a lot more mobile, I assume, a lot faster to move around the battlefield than a regular catapult. That can be very interesting. Slightly weaker than standard catapults in range and damage to both troops and buildings, but they can reposition quicker than infantry and follow the meta of hit-and-run tactics employed by the blue crag. That is going to be really fun to play as, I think. Use at choke points, open fields, or smashing through city walls. Troll melee is highly nerfed as they can only kick. They can't use their hands, okay? 4 trolls per unit. So you got 4 rocks being flung at the same time, okay? Available only in troll regions every 25 or 30 turns. Rare, but exciting. Yeah, I can definitely tell that looks amazing. Blue Crag Flaming Ballista Tower. Holy crap! So we got 1, 2, 3 ballista on top of a siege tower that's being pushed by trolls. This is insane, okay. The first proper siege weapon, effective against troops and walls alike. They can probably fire over walls. 3 ballista per tower, 2 towers per unit. So you got 6 ballista in a unit. You used to have 4, okay. Manned by 10 trolls capable of melee, so they can drop the siege equipment and go in melee. Each ballista shoots a triple shot. Triple shot! So we got 6 ballista firing 3 shots at the same time. So you got 18 shots just being flung out. Okay, that's insane. The trolls will be on par with standard catapult troll units. Okay. Blue Crag Orc and Goblin Bannerman. Okay, that's really nice with the heraldry on top. Tier 1 and Tier 2 goblins will have Goblin Bannermen and officers. Tier 3 and 4 will have Orc Bannermen and officers. Doorhand and Siege Troll units will have Doorhand Bannermen to be shown at a later date. So the dwarves will have dwarves, the goblins will have goblins, the orcs will have orcs. Okay, and the Siege Trolls will have dwarves as well. We got new portrait images, which are quite clearly used. They used AI for that, which I'm okay with. I know from experience from making thumbnails, it's really hard to find like proper goblin imagery that does it, because you got trolls, orcs, which look cool. Most of the time, goblins, they just look messy and just kind of lame. These guys, you can tell they're not big burly, but they're kind of sneaky. They're kind of, what about their legs? They don't need those kind of guys, while still looking intimidating and kind of scary. I don't want to walk into them at night, you know. Yeah, that's a lot of portraits actually, but yeah, it makes sense. It's an entirely new faction, and I really appreciate that they don't want to reuse images, because sometimes it happens when they add a new faction and they receive updates throughout time, but in the beginning they're just kind of like, you can really tell, oh, that's just a lukewarm this or that faction. Like, they could have easily made this like, oh, it's the Goblins of Moria, but they throw things instead, and that's kind of it. But I feel like the developers have really gone out of their way to make the Blue Crag Goblins their own thing, and incomparable to any other faction, which is really cool. And we haven't even seen any of the dwarves yet. Blue Crag Goblins were the first of our portrait overhaul project, so it's part of a larger project, okay. Base images created with AI software. We feel a fresh look is required for a fresh faction, yeah, very much so. Unique portraits per faction are made possible by the awesome EOP team, designing and implementing amazing tools and functions daily. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So I'm not against the use of AI in this case. And I mean, those portraits you see, they're tiny, like they're really zoomed in now, but in game they're really small. You're not even gonna be able to tell, honestly, so I'm fine with it. All Elven faction changes, yes. High Elves will be split into Imladris and Linden in version 2, yeah, we figured that out. So this is the new Imladris roster. So the high tier units kind of look the same, mid tier looks slightly different, and the low tier look very different. They kind of look more like the Elven Defender look, which is the garrison unit. Alright, Shields of the Golden Flower. So let's see, dedicated to the protection of Glorfindel. So can we not train them? Is it unique to Glorfindel? I'm not sure. Clad in the finest armor adorned with intricate golden flower motifs. So that's just a really high tier heavy cavalry unit. Looks cool. I like the greens. I'm a big fan of green. Green's my favorite color, so you know, always a fan of green. The Linden roster, man, they look a lot tougher if I can be honest. So you can definitely tell they're quite distinct. This is more with the gold and the browns. Here we have the blue and the silver or mithril, which I quite like. So you can easily tell them apart, which is good. And this is the high tier unit here. Curden's personal guard. Look at that. I have a big battle axe. And I assume that's mithril armor as well. and they have a secondary weapon being a longbow. Interesting. I mean, typically units that have ranged and melee capabilities have a longbow as a primary weapon and then a melee weapon as a secondary weapon. So I'm not sure if this is just phrasing or if indeed they've changed it somehow and they use their axe first until you switch to their secondary weapon, which is their bow. We'll see. Might just be a phrasing thing and it might not be the case at all, but yeah. Okay, new banners. Wooden and drum has also been changed a bit. Alright. Definitely look a lot more like they looked in the Hobbit movies. Okay, especially the early tier roster looks quite a bit different. And we get Elks, which is cool. Mirkwood Palace Guard, that is a sick model. Yeah, made by Louis Lux. I figured. That man is the most talented making these really, really high tier models. They look amazing. So I assume that is going to be Thranduil's unit as well. If you haven't checked out his Patreon, please do. Yeah, I can only say that as well. We get Toriel. Okay, cool. Is she going to be anything special? Is just going to be a general, I assume. Torian, Captain of the Elven Guard, will be unlocked after the player has reached 10 settlements as the Wooden Realm. She comes with a bodyguard of Hinedaur, which I think is the same bodyguard that Legolas uses, which is a body piercing, I think, ranged unit. Really powerful unit, either way. Got new Legolas as well. His armor has been kind of changed. Kind of a blend between his Lord of the Rings look and his Hobbit look, I would say. Especially more at the top here, that's more Hobbit inspired, but I think the rest is more Lord of the Rings. I like that, looks good, good model. Okay, yeah, made by Louis Lux as well. Yeah, his model work is just fantastic. I mean, you can immediately tell that's Legolas, that's Toriel. Even on the battlefield, you're going to be able to tell, which is really cool. Lothorian, okay, looks quite cool. Especially these guys, the ninja-looking guys. Lots of gold as well there, but you can tell very much distinct from Wooden and Drum again. And I think that's something that was less so the case in current versions, where the elves kind of, sometimes you can blend them in together, and if you'd give me a quiz and you'd show me like a Wooden and Drum unit, I might not be able to tell you if it's Wooden and Drum or Lothorian. Same with the High Elves, you know, is this a more Linden-specific unit, AOR-based that is, or is it a Rivendell unit? Wouldn't be able to tell you. Kingdom of Noldor, that is a new faction that we have played as. It used to be a separate submod, but now it's been just thrown in the game. After a long wait, we have finally reached our most awaited feature of version 2, a reunification script for Linden and Imladris. So it works different. Okay, so it's not the Noldor of Eregion, which is kind of a rebel faction. This is actually a reunification script like we have with Arnor and the Reunited Kingdom. So if you bring Linden and Imladris together, you get a new kingdom, the Kingdom of the Noldor. This new faction produces a unique dynamic, offering players strategic depth and elite units that redefine the battlefield. Okay. Players will trigger the formation of the Kingdom of Noldor through scripted events and strategic choices that will directly impact and shape the campaign, with some choices even leading to unforeseen consequences. I like that. So it's not all just bonuses. You kind of have to balance it a bit. Okay. Post-reunification, entire roster and regions of both Imladris and Linden annexed into the player's faction. The original roster's T2 units recruitment will be limited to their home regions respectively. So that's kind of how it works right now. Okay. So I don't think it really matters if you start as Imladris or if you start as Linden, because once you reunite, it's going to work the same way it works as it is right now. So there's no real difference. Okay. The mainline roster will be composed of new units, primarily imported from the Noldor of Region submod. That's the mod I was talking about. Along with a few other major mods who have graciously provided us permission to use their models. Teamwork is the best work. I really like seeing all the different submods working together and just making these massive overhauls. It's just... we live in the best Medieval 2 Total War modding period, especially if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. Like, we're eating well. Like, honestly, it's amazing how far we've come. Depending on the initial faction chosen to form the reunion, okay, so I was wrong, unique units will become available after reunification, offering strategic diversity and personalized playthroughs. Good, because I was kind of worried that it wouldn't matter if you'd pick Imladris first and if you'd pick Linden first, but it does matter. So you can still play both campaigns, you can still complete both times the Kingdom script, and you're going to still get a different experience, so that's really cool. As Linden, you can expect units with more seafaring and defensive edge. Yeah, so we're going to get more of those javelins, those mariners, those boat, maybe even. The higher tier of boat. And with Imladris, we'll probably have more ranged units. Yeah. And that's the new banner. Kingdom of Noldor isn't just about powerful units, it requires astute strategy and thoughtful choices. Players will need to balance the strengths of their original factions, manage the deployment of home region units, and tactically utilize the elite Noldor reinforcements to dominate the battlefield. I think this type of faction will very much benefit from the replenishment script, because it's really a pain to keep your troops alive and to replenish them and to send them back and retrain them, etc, etc. So if they replenish as quickly as goblins do, that might need to be changed a little bit, because that could be quite broken. But I have very much faith that that will not be a problem. Now we have the symbol. Thrilling news for players. For those who find diplomacy too tame and crave conquest, we offer an alternate path to unite the elves. Brace yourselves for the fourth kinslaying and the unification of the elves under the banner of the Kingdom of Eregion. So not the Kingdom of the Noldor, but the Kingdom of Eregion, which was the submod I was talking about, which I have played. I've done a playthrough of that. I'll try to remember to put a link to that in the description. But that is, it's more of an evil elven twist. So yeah, really interesting. I'm very happy that they've included that as well. If you're a fan of the elves, this is a really nice update. So the Kingdom of Eregion will form through scripted event strategic choices that significantly impact the campaign. So you get an invasion scenario where a sister faction is invaded by an evil neighboring force, and then you can either answer the call for aid and increase affinity, lead to peaceful unification, while refusing could set the stage for betrayal and enmity. Okay. So is that a, because I'm not entirely sure, is that a different faction that you can always play as, or is it a choice when you reunite? Do you go for the Kingdom of Eregion or the Kingdom of the Noldor? Because it says upon forming Kingdom of the Noldor, the player's original roster will be replaced. So I assume it's either you play as Linden or you play as Imladris, and then you have a choice. Do we go for the more good way, Kingdom of Noldor, or do we go for the more evil way, Kingdom of Eregion? I'll have to kind of check that out, how that works. Unlike Kingdom of Noldor, where players gain unique generals from both factions, Kingdom of Eregion will instead face them as opponents on the battlefield, opposing their path of conquest. That is really cool. In exchange, new unique generals will be gained to aid them on their path of conquest. So I assume that's kind of similar to how it is in the submod that I've already played. Faction leaders Elrond and Círdan will vehemently oppose the player's kinslaying path, stepping down and challenge them in battle, leading to a new custom faction leader who will be familiar face for some. I assume that is, I forgot his name, the faction leader that is used in the current submod, but yeah, I forgot his name, I'm sorry. I see him right in front of me, but that's it. Weaker starting military, poor diplomatic relations with other good factions, however, this is balanced by possessing one of the most powerful rosters among the elves. So you're gonna, early game is going to be quite tough, but once you get rolling, it's going to be quite nice. Challenging playthrough requiring strategic planning, battlefield prowess, with blood-red units symbolizing their path of the accursed. This is well written. Players must carefully plan engagements and maximize their troops' effectiveness, navigating complex political landscape to unite the elves under one banner. Special thanks to Fingon, yeah, for the developer of the mod, for letting us repurpose his assets to fit our mod. Roster looks a bit different than how I remember it, but yeah, really cool. It's a big roster actually. Gold units are ring exclusive units. Okay. Is that all the gold units here? So 1, 2, 3, 4? So there's gonna be a special script for when you hold the ring. That is nice. And I'm gonna go on a tangent here, but I need that. There's only so many factions that have special ring scripts. Mordor has one, the good factions have one, which is just destroy them. But I really like when they add more, because for example in my Dunland campaign right now, I have the one ring, but I'm at war with Mordor, so I'm not gonna give them the one ring. But there's nothing I can do with the ring. It is a completely useless item to me. Which is mad, right? Because it's the War of the Ring. I have the ring, and I can use it for anything. So I like that the Noldor can use it. I would like to see dwarves being able to use it as well. Give it a lot of like malices as well. Make sure that we get punished for using it. Absolute power absolutely corrupts, but let us do something with it. So seeing ring exclusive units, that's music to my ears. Tolwinian changes, we're going to go through this a bit quicker, I think. So those are the Moriquendi, those are the Dark Elves, they call them. So I think these are just model changes. High Paladins, looking really nice. I like the big Pavi shields. Okay, Mornithal has been changed, so that's one of those Elven Remnant cities. So that's a new campaign strategy model, and actually battle map model. Oh, I like that with all the... I mean, it's going to be a pain to play through, but it looks really nice, I'll tell you that. So you got a forest on the outer wall of the city. That's a big city. 1, 2, 3 walls. Okay. The winning will also receive some love. We have to share with you a new campaign strategy model. So that's this one here, the one you'll see on the campaign map. Further enhance your gameplay, make your campaign more engaging and immersive when seizing these cities. So these are unique. I like that, because right now we have a lot of settlements that are reused and you just kind of take the same settlements all throughout the game, but more unique campaign strategy models are really nice. So thank you to P-Man from the Game of Thrones Fire and Blood mod. Again, teamwork makes the dream work. Anduin Veil changes. I think these are like the beehive throwers, aren't they? Yeah, the stingers of the Veil. So they throw beehives. Yeah, that's their weapon. Particularly effective against low morale enemies like Orc Rabble. I think the Medieval Kingdoms Americas campaign also had like a beehive throwing like Aztec or Maya unit. I mean, it's got to be a meme unit, but I like it. And there we go, more unique campaign strategy models. I mean, they're not unique, but they're different. Because right now, like Rohan, Anduin Veil, I think even Dale, they all use the same models. But now we get unique ones for the Bjornings, which is really nice. We'll have 4 new passes in version 2. And the Blue Mountains. Ah, so here in Thorin's Hall, there's one that goes to the north. Okay, that's kind of similar to how it is in Moria. Blue Mountains, yeah, like with Zakala here. Mordor gets one as well, so Durthang is a lot more nestled in there. Okay, interesting. It used to be a path from Urkestala to Durthang, but it seems that's blocked off. So Durthang is really quite like hard to reach. Okay, a hidden path from Minas Morgul towards Khand. Sorry, no, that's the hidden path. Okay, this is the path from the south of Mordor to Khand. They'll put a fort there as well. Okay, interesting. That is nice for when you're playing Khand and you want to go good. Because instead of having to circle all the way around in this direction, there is a pass here. Or if you're playing as Mordor and you want to punish good Khand, that's also an option. Some changes to the unit cards. Okay. They look a lot more fleshed out, which I like. Gundabad, Khazad-dûm as well. They used to be kind of small, but now they look quite a bit bigger. Okay. Dwarves of Erebor. Oh, I see Goat Riders. Okay. Controversial. Goblins of Moria. That's very zoomed in. But yeah, I mean, just looks good. I've never had any complaints about unit cards, and these, they always make them look better, and I never ask for improvements. They still get better, so it's like, okay, that's great. Miscellaneous additions. Gundabad Wolves. Okay. I think those are going to be mostly like rebels. I don't know. They're going to be similar to like walk packs, but I rarely use walk packs, so we'll see. They might be useful, they might not be useful. New loading screens. They don't look AI. Nope, that's just official art and fan art, it seems. Looks great. New Balrog models. Okay, so that's the Balrog of Moria, and we've of course already seen the one from the Blue Crag. I mean, this guy looks a lot more refined. He's a lot more demure. This guy's just a raving lunatic, which I like. And it does seem like the Goblin of Moria is bigger. I'd have to put them in game next to one another to really compare, but based on the size comparison, banana for scale, you know, this guy looks bigger, which I like. And then there we go. We've reached the end of the script, so I'll read the final words for you all. If you made it this far, which we have, then the EUR dev team thanks you for your patience and support, and Izzy thanks you as well for watching it all the way through. We'd have never reached this far without our community, which has been supportive of us. The journey is still bright in front of us, and you can expect even more in the coming days. Looking forward to the day we can release these changes to the public for everyone. Yes, and I'm very excited as well. As soon as I can feature some version 2 of EUR, I will. Of course, there's also AGO, the AI and Gameplay Overhaul submod, version 3 in the works, so there's a lot of stuff like being done at the same time, and it's amazing. Like I said throughout the video, we're in a really like fantastic position for Medieval 2 modding as a whole, and especially if you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings. I can tell you, when I first started playing Divide and Conquer, that was like version 0.5 or something like that. It was already fantastic, it was great, don't get me wrong, but it was a bitch to install, and it was just like engine limitations everywhere, and models that were really quite rough, frequent crashing. But now we get all this crazy stuff. Like, the game is completely stable, there's rarely any crashing, it's very easy to install. They've made wizards for the damn thing. You just need to press one button and it does everything for you. Now they can start doing a lot of work, just these nice almost quality of change changes, quality of life changes, sorry. These models that are just becoming like obscene. We're talking about a game that's almost like 20 years old at this point, but it looks so damn good. So I thank you guys for watching. I also want to say big thanks to the EOR mod developers for writing this up. This has been really nice and easy for me to read through. I've been meaning to make videos like this, but I've always had to like make the changelog myself, which I was not looking forward to doing, but they've made that work for me, so thank you. I will put a link to ModDB, but also the Discord of EOR in the description of this video. Go check it out. You can already play version 1 of EOR, which already changes a ton of things. It's already a really great mod. So check it out, install it, play it, maybe even sign up for testing for EOR version 2. And yeah, we have so much cool stuff to look forward to, and I'm going to feature it on YouTube, so if you want to watch campaigns like that, do make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Ta-ta, boys.